Imagine you wake up to breaking news. Two powerful nations have launched coordinated airstrikes against another country, justifying their actions with warnings about the safety of the world. Imagine, too, that both of these nations already possess the very weapons they claim to fear: nuclear weapons. Yet, as the news cycle churns, you notice something odd. The world's media, including the most respected outlets, barely mention this glaring fact. How does this silence shape what you believe about safety, about who holds power, and about what the truth really is? This is not a hypothetical scenario. This is the reality we live in when it comes to Israel, Iran, and the daily headlines that influence public opinion and international policy. For decades, the media has saturated us with stories about Iran's nuclear ambitions, detailed diagrams, urgent expert commentary, heated political debates, and endless speculation. But behind all that noise lies an astonishing silence about Israel's own nuclear arsenal. This silence isn't just a quirk of journalism. It is the result of decades of intentional secrecy and geopolitical maneuvering. Let's rewind history to understand how we got here. Israel's nuclear program can be traced back to the late 1950s, a period when the world was already deep in the throes of the Cold War. With covert assistance from France, Israel began constructing its nuclear capabilities. The partnership led to the establishment of the Dimona nuclear reactor, hidden away in the Negev desert. By the early 1960s, Israel had laid the foundation for a nuclear program that would become one of the most closely guarded secrets in modern history. Unlike Iran, Israel has never signed the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, known as the NPT. This means that Israel is not bound by the same international regulations, inspections, or transparency requirements as almost every other nuclear-capable nation. While Iran's nuclear sites are subject to intrusive monitoring by the International Atomic Energy Agency, Israel's facilities remain shrouded in secrecy. The world's most advanced intelligence agencies have tried for decades to peer inside, but with little success. For over half a century, Israel has maintained a strict policy known as nuclear ambiguity, or nuclear opacity. This means Israeli leaders neither confirm nor deny the existence of nuclear weapons. The policy is so deeply ingrained that it has become almost a ritual. Every Israeli prime minister, from David Ben-Gurion to Benjamin Netanyahu, has avoided direct answers on the topic. As Avner Cohen, a leading historian of Israel's nuclear program, observes, Israel acquired nuclear weapons capability in a manner unlike any other nuclear weapons state. Behind the veil of secrecy, however, experts believe Israel has amassed a substantial nuclear arsenal. Estimates vary, but most credible sources, including the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, suggest Israel possesses between 90 and 300 nuclear warheads. For comparison, that is more than the nuclear stockpiles of countries like India or Pakistan, and places Israel among the world's top nuclear powers. But these warheads are not just theoretical. Israel has reportedly integrated nuclear weapons into all branches of its military. The Israeli Air Force is believed to have aircraft capable of delivering nuclear bombs deep into enemy territory. The Israeli Navy operates advanced submarines, some reportedly modified by German engineers, to carry cruise missiles tipped with nuclear warheads. These submarines can remain hidden underwater for extended periods, providing what military strategists call a second strike capability, meaning Israel could retaliate even if its land-based forces were destroyed. Yet despite all this, the media, especially outlets like the BBC, rarely discuss Israel's nuclear capabilities. Let's look at the numbers. In just 1 month, the BBC produced over 100 articles and more than 800 live updates, analyzing the nuclear standoff between Iran and Israel. These reports included detailed infographics about Iran's centrifuges, breakdowns of uranium enrichment levels, and maps outlining the possible targets of Iranian missiles. But how many of these stories mentioned Israel's nuclear arsenal? Only a tiny handful, often just a single line buried at the very bottom of the article reading, "Israel is widely believed to have nuclear weapons, although it neither confirms nor denies this." This imbalance is not a trivial oversight, it is a pattern. The BBC and other major outlets frequently quote Israeli officials warning about the threat posed by Iran's nuclear program, yet almost never consult independent experts regarding Israel's own capabilities. When discussing the military balance in the Middle East, the conversation is almost always framed in terms of Iran's potential, not Israel's actual existing arsenal. Why does this matter? Because what the public sees, and does not see, shapes the entire debate. The absence of information influences not only how people perceive the risks, but also how policymakers craft their strategies. Seymour Hersh, the Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist who first exposed Israel's secret nuclear program decades ago, put it bluntly. The United States has moved from dupe to reluctant accomplice regarding Israel's nuclear program. Let's dive even deeper. Israel's nuclear arsenal operates entirely outside the framework of international law. The International Atomic Energy Agency, which is responsible for safeguarding nuclear materials and ensuring compliance with non-proliferation treaties, is routinely denied access to Israeli facilities. Israel has resisted repeated calls from Egypt, from the United Nations, from the European Union, and even from some members of the United States Congress to open its nuclear sites to inspection or to sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Meanwhile, the United States continues to provide nearly $3.8 billion each year in military aid to Israel. This financial support, the largest of its kind in the world, helps maintain not only Israel's conventional military superiority, but also indirectly underwrites its nuclear deterrence. As Alicia Sanders-Zachary of the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons points out, Israel retains a capability to commit mass atrocity with its nuclear arsenal. Contrast this with Iran's situation. Iran, despite all the international scrutiny, has never been proven to possess nuclear weapons. Tehran insists its nuclear program is for peaceful energy purposes, yet it is subjected to relentless pressure, inspections, and even military threats by countries that themselves have nuclear arsenals. The double standard is glaring. As former International Atomic Energy Agency Chief Mohammed El-Baradei argues, Israel's nuclear ambiguity undermines regional security and non-proliferation efforts. This brings us to a vital question. Why does the world's most trusted broadcaster, the BBC, continue to sidestep Israel's nuclear reality? Is this simply an editorial oversight, or is it a reflection of deeper political and strategic calculations? The BBC is not alone. Most Western media outlets follow a similar pattern, often citing national security or editorial balance as justifications for their silence. But as tensions in the Middle East escalate and the risk of a nuclear arms race grows, understanding the reasons behind this silence becomes more important than ever. Let's explore some possible scenarios. If Israel continues its policy of nuclear ambiguity and major news organizations continue to downplay or ignore its arsenal, the region could stumble into ever greater instability. Egypt, for example, has for decades demanded that Israel sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty and open its facilities to international inspectors. The Arab League, too, has repeatedly called for a nuclear weapons-free zone in the Middle East, a proposal that remains blocked primarily because of Israel's refusal to participate. Meanwhile, Iran perceives a profound double standard. Its leaders see that the international community and the media focus almost exclusively on Iranian nuclear ambitions, while ignoring Israel's actual operational warheads. This sense of injustice fuels a dangerous cycle. The more Iran feels threatened or singled out, the more it may accelerate its own nuclear research. Henry Kissinger, the legendary American diplomat, once warned, "The Israelis are more likely than almost any other country to actually use their nuclear weapons if threatened." This chilling observation raises the stakes not just for the region, but for the entire world. The consequences extend far beyond the Middle East. When powerful states can ignore international rules with impunity, and when the media turns a blind eye, it undermines the credibility of global institutions. Why should any country abide by arms control agreements if some are allowed to flaunt them? This erosion of trust could encourage more countries to seek their own nuclear deterrence, sparking a new arms race across the Middle East and possibly beyond. Let's look at some historical parallels. During the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a perilous standoff, each side fully aware of the other's capabilities. That mutual knowledge, however terrifying, acted as a deterrent. Today, in the Middle East, the situation is clouded by secrecy and selective disclosure. The lack of transparency increases misunderstandings and raises the risk of miscalculation. The story of Mordecai Vanunu is a powerful example of the lengths to which Israel has gone to maintain its nuclear secrecy. In the mid-1980s, Vanunu, a technician at the Dimona facility, leaked photographs and documents to the British press, revealing the scale of Israel's nuclear program. In response, he was lured to Italy by Mossad agents, kidnapped, smuggled back to Israel, and sentenced to 18 years in prison, 11 of those in solitary confinement. Vanunu's revelations confirmed what many had suspected, but the official policy of ambiguity remained unshaken. There are even allegations that Israel, in cooperation with South Africa, conducted a secret nuclear test in 1979, an event known as the Vela Incident. While the details remain classified, the incident has fueled further speculation about the extent of Israel's capabilities and its willingness to cross international boundaries to safeguard its deterrent. This policy of ambiguity is reinforced by what is known as the Samson option. The concept, named after the biblical figure who brought down a temple on himself and his enemies, is a deterrent strategy that suggests Israel would use its nuclear arsenal if its very existence were threatened. The mere possibility acts as a powerful warning to potential adversaries. Yet, this very strategy also increases regional anxiety and uncertainty. Let's bring this home. What does all this mean for you, the viewer? First, it's a stark reminder to question the information you receive, even, and especially, from sources with reputations for impartiality. Media framing shapes our understanding of global risks, alliances, and even morality in international affairs. When entire nuclear arsenals can be treated as open secrets, hidden in plain sight, it is time to dig deeper and demand more from our news sources. Second, the unchecked narratives have real-world consequences. Policies are made, wars are justified, and billions, yes, billions, of taxpayer dollars flow in military aid, often with little public debate or scrutiny. For example, every year, United States taxpayers send nearly $3.8 billion in military support to Israel. Yet the ultimate use and consequences of that funding are rarely discussed outside specialist circles. The indirect bolstering of Israel's nuclear deterrent is almost never mentioned in mainstream discussions. This silence has another effect. It distorts the public's understanding of what is truly at stake. When media coverage focuses exclusively on Iran's uranium enrichment while ignoring Israel's modernizing nuclear arsenal, it creates a lopsided narrative. According to CIPRI's latest assessment, Israel is not just maintaining but actively upgrading its nuclear weapons and its plutonium production reactor at Dimona. Meanwhile, BBC articles continue to showcase glossy maps of Iranian missile ranges, while omitting any mention of Israel's Jericho missiles, which can strike targets thousands of kilometers away. Now consider the diplomatic fallout. The United Nations General Assembly has repeatedly passed resolutions calling for Israel to renounce its nuclear weapons and join the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Yet Israel has ignored these calls, with the tacit support of Western powers. Egypt, Jordan, and other Arab nations have repeatedly raised the issue in international forums, arguing that Israel's arsenal is a source of regional tension and a threat to peace. Let's imagine a possible future. If Iran were to acquire nuclear weapons, something it currently denies seeking, it could trigger a cascade of proliferation across the Middle East. Countries like Saudi Arabia, Turkey, or Egypt might feel compelled to develop their own deterrents. The result? A multi-sided nuclear standoff in one of the world's most volatile regions. Alternatively, growing international pressure could force Israel to reconsider its stance. Already, some American lawmakers and European leaders are calling for greater transparency. A new United States brokered deal with Iran, if successful, could reduce tensions and limit Iran's nuclear capabilities, but only if it is accompanied by a frank discussion about Israel's arsenal as well. So why does the silence persist? The answer is a complex mix of geopolitics, media priorities, and old alliances. For Western governments, supporting Israel's policy of ambiguity serves several purposes. It avoids provoking adversaries, maintains strategic flexibility, and sidesteps difficult public debates. For media organizations, the issue is fraught with sensitivities. Journalists face political pressure, editorial guidelines, and fears of backlash. As a result, the status quo is maintained. But make no mistake, this silence is not a shield for security, it is a source of instability. When politicians posture over Iran's hypothetical bombs, Israel's real warheads, likely numbering between 90 and 300, have existed outside international law since the late 1960s. The world's most volatile region remains haunted by a weapon that is acknowledged by all yet openly discussed by none. So, what can you do? First, demand more from your news sources. Ask why some facts are hidden and others are repeated endlessly. Engage with independent analysts, seek out alternative perspectives, and share what you learn. If the public demands more balanced journalism, it can create pressure for both governments and media organizations to break long-standing silences. Second, recognize that transparency is essential for global security. Fair reporting that spotlights all sides of a story, rather than hiding inconvenient truths, is the foundation of accountability and peace. If we accept selective coverage, we risk enabling the very conflicts we hope to prevent. To sum up, the silence around Israel's nuclear arsenal persists because of a tacit pact between governments, military strategists, and media gatekeepers, often justified in the name of national security or regional stability. But in reality, that silence breeds misunderstanding and distrust. As long as the world refuses to openly acknowledge the existence and implications of Israel's nuclear weapons, true stability in the Middle East will remain elusive. If you found this deep dive eye-opening, don't let it end here. Share this video with someone who relies on headlines for their understanding of the world. Subscribe for more investigations that look beyond the surface and challenge the status quo. And let us know in the comments, should the world demand full transparency from every nuclear-armed state, or is ambiguity sometimes the best defense against disaster?